The 1,970 seconds were the golden age of music, a time when soulful ballads, blazing guitar riffs, and explosive disco beats shaped an entire generation. Join us as we celebrate 50 legends who turned this decade into a timeless era of music history. Joe Cocker didn't just sing songs, he tore them from his soul. With his gravelly voice and raw delivery, he turned covers like "With a Little Help from My Friends" into his own. His unforgettable performance at Woodstock made him a household name, while ballads like "You Are So Beautiful" revealed his softer side. Cocker was proof that emotion mattered more than perfection, and his music still gives chills decades later. They called him the Boss, and with Born to Run in 1975, Bruce Springsteen lived up to the name. His anthems of working-class struggle and dreams of escape gave America a voice in uncertain times. Springsteen's marathon live shows, bursting with sweat and passion, became the stuff of legend. In the 70 seconds, he wasn't just a musician. He was a folk hero, bridging rock and poetry in a way no one else could. Even in the twilight of his career, Elvis reminded the world why he was the king. His Las Vegas residencies weren't just shows. They were extravaganzas that drew audiences from every corner of the globe. In 1973, his Aloha from Hawaii concert became the first event broadcast worldwide via satellite, reaching more than 1 billion viewers. Though he passed in 1977 at just 42, Elvis's charisma, raw power, and voice left an indelible mark, making him not only a music icon, but also a cultural phenomenon whose influence still reverberates today. Elton John was larger than life. From sequined suits to oversized, sparkling glasses, he embodied the flamboyance of the 70 seconds. Yet, behind the glitter was genius. Songs like Your Song and Rocket Man weren't just chart toppers. They became timeless pieces of art. His ability to combine heartfelt storytelling with theatrical spectacle made him a global superstar. By the end of the decade, Elton wasn't just a pop star. He was a living legend with music that continues to inspire. Few artists have ever reinvented themselves the way Bowie did. As Ziggy Stardust, he introduced the world to glam rock's most dazzling alien, blending music, theater, and fashion in ways no one had before. Later, albums like Heroes showed his darker, more introspective side, proving his artistry had endless layers. Bowie didn't chase trends, he created them. His 70 seconds output wasn't just popular, it was revolutionary, influencing everyone from rockers to fashion designers. After the Beatles' breakup, many doubted whether Paul could thrive as a solo act. He answered with Wings, delivering Band on the Run, one of the decade's defining albums. McCartney's ability to craft melodies that felt both fresh and eternal kept him at the top of charts worldwide. His versatility, moving from rock anthems to tender ballads, reminded the world that he was still one of music's greatest talents. With Imagine, Lennon gave the world a peace anthem that transcended generations. His 1,970 seconds music, often raw and deeply personal, reflected his activism and search for truth. Beyond being a Beatle, Lennon became a cultural leader unafraid to speak out about war, peace, and justice. His life was tragically cut short in 1980, but his voice remains a beacon of hope and humanity. George Harrison stepped forward with All Things Must Pass, an album full of spiritual depth and lyrical brilliance. His concert for Bangladesh in 1971 was the first large-scale benefit concert, raising millions for humanitarian aid and showing that music could be a force for change. Harrison's artistry carried both serenity and strength, making him one of the most soulful voices of the decade. Often underestimated as just the drummer, Ringo proved his worth as a solo artist. His single Photograph was a worldwide hit, showcasing his charm and ability to connect with audiences. While his peers pushed for reinvention, Ringo remained himself approachable, genuine, and beloved by fans. His steady presence ensured that even in the crowded music world of the 70 Seconds, he still shone brightly. Rod Stewart's gravelly voice and wild charisma made him irresistible. From the raw energy of Maggie May to heartfelt ballads that revealed his tender side, Stewart could do it all. He embodied the image of the swaggering rock star while still connecting deeply through his lyrics. In the 70 Seconds, he wasn't just a singer, he was a symbol of passion, romance, and rebellion. Clapton's guitar spoke louder than words. Layla, fueled by unrequited love, became one of rock's most powerful anthems, while Wonderful Tonight showcased his softer, more romantic side. His blend of blues and rock set the standard for guitarists everywhere. In the 1,970 seconds, Clapton's music was both deeply personal and universally relatable, cementing him as one of history's greatest musicians. Billy Joel's Piano Man wasn't just a debut, it was the start of a legacy. With every lyric, he turned ordinary stories into extraordinary songs. His ability to paint vivid portraits of working-class life gave him a unique voice in American music. By the late 70 Seconds, Joel wasn't only a hitmaker, he was the storyteller of everyday people, earning the title of the Bard of Long Island. The Queen of Disco turned dance floors into kingdoms. Hits like Hot Stuff and I Feel Love weren't just songs, they were revolutions. By infusing electronic beats into disco, Donna helped lay the foundation for modern electronic dance music. Her voice was sultry yet commanding, making her the reigning diva of 70 Seconds nightlife. Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive became an anthem of resilience, empowerment, and strength. With every verse, she gave courage to those battling heartbreak and hardship. The song transcended disco, becoming a cultural symbol that still resonates today. Gaynor proved that music could heal, inspire, and empower. The Bee Gees turned disco into a global obsession. Their falsetto-driven hits, especially on the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, defined the sound of the decade. Songs like Stayin' Alive and Night Fever became cultural landmarks. They didn't just make records, they made history, becoming synonymous with 70 Seconds, style, dance, and energy. Earth, Wind, and Fire created a universe where funk, soul, and spirituality collided. Songs like September, Boogie Wonderland, and Shining Star weren't just hits, they were uplifting experiences. Their dazzling live shows, filled with costumes, choreography, and pure energy, made them one of the most dynamic bands of the decade. Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards gave disco sophistication. With Le Freak and Good Times, they crafted grooves that became the DNA of hip-hop and pop for decades to come. Chic didn't just dominate clubs, they influenced the very future of modern music production. The Village People were more than just a band, they were an experience. With their iconic costumes and campy flair, they created anthems like YMCA and Macho Man that celebrated freedom, fun, and identity. They captured the playful, inclusive spirit of disco and turned it into cultural history. By the 1,970 seconds, Diana Ross had already conquered the world as the lead singer of The Supremes, Motown's most successful act. But instead of staying in the shadows of her group, Ross boldly stepped out to build her own empire. Her solo career exploded with sophistication and flair, as she reinvented herself as a disco-pop diva who could command any stage she stepped onto. Hits like Love Hangover captured the essence of the dance floor, starting slow and sensual before erupting into pure disco euphoria, while Upside Down, produced by Chic's Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, proved she could adapt seamlessly to the era's hottest sounds. More than just a voice, Diana embodied elegance and star power, radiating glamour with every performance. By the end of the decade, she wasn't just a former Motown star. She was a cultural icon and one of the ultimate divas of the modern music era. Before the world crowned him the King of Pop with Thriller, Michael Jackson had already become a phenomenon in the 1,970 seconds. As the youngest member of the Jackson 5, he stunned audiences with his natural charisma, flawless dance moves, and a voice that was both pure and powerful. Songs like ABC, I Want You Back, and Dancing Machine weren't just hits, they became staples of American pop culture. By the mid-70 seconds, Michael began stepping out on his own, releasing solo tracks like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You toward the decade's close. These songs revealed the superstar he was destined to be: electrifying, innovative, and unstoppable. The 1,970 seconds were Michael's launchpad, setting the stage for a career that would break records, boundaries, and expectations, making him the most famous entertainer the world had ever known. Barry White brought romance to an entirely new dimension. With his deep, velvety baritone and lush orchestral arrangements, he turned love songs into grand, sensual experiences that felt larger than life. His 1,970 seconds classics, including Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe, and You're the First, the Last, My Everything, transformed ordinary moments into something cinematic and timeless. White's music wasn't just background for romance, it was the soundtrack of love itself. His ability to blend soul, funk, and disco with sweeping strings and grooves gave his work a luxurious quality that set him apart from anyone else of his time. Beyond the music, Barry's presence, charismatic, commanding, yet tender, made him one of the defining voices of passion in the 1,970 seconds. His influence continues to echo in every slow jam and love ballad that followed. When Marvin Gaye released What's Going On in 1971, it was more than just an album, it was a cultural earthquake. With his smooth, silky voice, Gaye tackled the issues weighing heavily on America: war in Vietnam, racial inequality, police brutality, environmental destruction, and poverty. While soul music had often focused on romance, Marvin dared to elevate it, using his art to ask difficult questions and push for change. Tracks like Mercy Mercy Me, The Ecology, and Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, became protest anthems wrapped in irresistible melodies, songs that forced listeners to think while they grooved. But Marvin wasn't only political, he also mastered sensuality with Let's Get It On, 1,973, which became one of the most iconic love songs in history. In the 1,970 seconds, Marvin Gaye embodied duality, a poet for justice and a prophet of desire. His music still feels urgent, his voice still timeless, making him one of the greatest artists of all time. Stevie Wonder's 1,970 seconds output is nothing short of legendary. Blind since infancy, he reimagined the possibilities of sound and songwriting. Albums like Inner Visions, Talking Book, and songs in the key of life became cornerstones of modern music. His mix of funk, jazz, gospel, and soul produced classics like Superstition and Sir Duke. Beyond the grooves, Stevie's music carried messages of love, joy, and social awareness. In the 70 Seconds, he wasn't just making hits, he was redefining music itself. The Queen of Soul reigned supreme throughout the 1,970 seconds. With her unmatched powerhouse voice, Aretha gave every note a raw, emotional punch. Songs like Until You Come Back to Me and Rock Steady showcased both her tenderness and her fire. As trends changed, Aretha's presence never wavered. She remained a beacon of strength, pride, and artistry. Her voice was timeless, a gift that transcended decades and cemented her as one of the greatest vocalists in history. Few voices embodied love the way Al Green's did. With Let's Stay Together and Love and Happiness, he gave the world soulful ballads that became the soundtrack of romance. His voice was tender yet commanding, wrapping every listener in warmth. On stage, his sincerity and charm made fans feel like he was singing just to them. Al Green wasn't just performing songs, he was preaching the gospel of love. Isaac Hayes broke the mold of what soul could be. With his shaved head, sunglasses, and deep baritone voice, he stood out visually as much as musically. His groundbreaking theme from Shaft earned him an Academy Award, making him one of the first Black artists to take home that honor. Beyond his own records, Hayes was also a gifted producer and songwriter, helping to shape the very architecture of funk and R&B. He proved soul could be cinematic, powerful, and unapologetically bold. Curtis Mayfield was more than a musician, he was a messenger. His falsetto floated over grooves that carried messages of justice and empowerment. With Superfly, he tackled issues like drugs, poverty, and survival in urban America, blending hard truths with irresistible rhythms. Curtis's songs weren't just for dancing, they were calls to action, making him one of the most socially conscious voices in music history. Motown's Golden Group didn't stay locked in the past, they evolved with the times. In the 70 Seconds, the Temptations shifted from romantic ballads to gritty, socially aware funk. Papa Was a Rollin' Stone wasn't just a song, it was a haunting narrative of family struggle, delivered with hypnotic harmonies and unforgettable bass lines. By reinventing themselves, the Temptations proved they weren't just survivors of the Motown era, they were innovators of soul's future. Before his solo career turned him into one of the biggest stars of the 80 Seconds, Lionel Richie made his mark with the Commodores. He showed two sides of his artistry, writing tender ballads like Easy and 3 Times a Lady, and delivering funky, hard-hitting tracks like Brick House. This balance of romance and energy set him apart and prepared him for the global stardom that would soon follow. Already a legend with The Miracles, Smokey Robinson stepped out on his own in the 70 Seconds. His solo hits like Cruisin' and Quiet Storm showcased his smooth vocals and poetic lyrics. In fact, Quiet Storm would go on to define an entire subgenre of R&B built on intimacy and romance. Smokey's velvet voice and lyrical grace made him one of the most enduring figures in soul music, bridging the gap between Motown's golden era and the modern sound of R&B. With their soaring harmonies and socially conscious lyrics, the O'Jays became the face of Philadelphia's soul. Tracks like Love Train spread a message of unity and hope across the globe, while Backstabbers reflected the realities of distrust and hardship. Their ability to blend joy with truth gave their music universal power. In the 1,970 seconds, The OJs weren't just making hits, they were helping shape the very sound of soul itself. Barbra Streisand was more than a singer. She was a force of nature. Her powerful, unmistakable voice carried across Broadway, Hollywood, and radio airwaves. In 1976, she starred in A Star is Born and co-wrote Evergreen, the film's tender love ballad. The song won her an Academy Award, making her the first woman ever to receive an Oscar for Best Original Song. Streisand's mix of elegance, strength, and vocal brilliance cemented her as America's diva, a title she holds to this day. With her soft, angelic voice and radiant charm, Olivia Newton-John captured hearts worldwide. She began with country pop gems like If You Love Me, Let Me Know, then crossed into superstardom with her role as Sandy in Grease, 1978. Songs like Hopelessly Devoted to You and You're the One That I Want became cultural landmarks. Olivia wasn't just a singer, she was America's sweetheart, embodying innocence, joy, and timeless appeal. Carly Simon had the rare ability to make a pop song feel like a confession. Her 1972 smash hit You're So Vain was an instant sensation, sparking decades of speculation about who inspired it. But Carly was more than a mystery. She was a gifted songwriter with a sharp eye for emotion. Her songs mixed vulnerability with confidence, making her one of the most compelling singer-songwriters of the decade. Carole King's Tapestry wasn't just an album, it was a revolution in intimacy. Released in 1971, it became one of the best-selling records of all time, filled with classics like It's Too Late and You've Got a Friend. King's gift was her honesty. She wrote songs that felt like conversations, songs that captured everyday heartbreak and quiet resilience. With Tapestry, she became the voice of a generation, proving that vulnerability could be powerful. Linda Ronstadt's voice was like a chameleon. It could soar through rock, glide through country, and melt into tender ballads. In the 1,970 seconds, she became one of the decade's defining female rockers, with hits like You're No Good and When Will I Be Loved. Ronstadt wasn't afraid to cross genres, and that versatility made her one of the most respected and successful singers of her era. With every song, she brought passion, power, and authenticity. After breaking away from Sunny, Cher reinvented herself as a fearless solo artist. With bold hits like Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves and Half-Breed, she built a persona that was unapologetically strong and defiantly unique. Cher's deep contralto voice carried grit and emotion, while her fashion and stage presence made her a cultural icon. The 70 seconds cemented her as more than just a TV star. They proved she was here to stay. Stevie Nicks brought an ethereal magic to Fleetwood Mac that set them apart. Her haunting voice and mystical songwriting defined tracks like Dreams and Rhiannon, turning them into timeless anthems. With her flowing shawls, poetic lyrics, and hypnotic stage presence, Nicks became the soul of 70 Seconds rock. She gave Fleetwood Mac its mystery, its vulnerability, and its edge all at once. While the drama in Fleetwood Mac often stole headlines, Christine McVie was the band's grounding force. Her warm, steady voice and knack for melody-shaped songs like Don't Stop and You Make Loving Fun. Unlike Stevie's mystical aura, McVie brought a down-to-earth sincerity that balanced the group's fiery tension. She was the heart of Fleetwood Mac, delivering songs that radiated warmth and optimism even during turbulent times. Joni Mitchell redefined what it meant to be a singer-songwriter. Her 1,000 1971 masterpiece Blue was raw, vulnerable, and poetic, exposing her soul with an honesty few dared to match. Through songs like A Case of You and River, she turned heartbreak into art. Mitchell's fearless creativity and lyrical genius made her a towering figure in music, not just of the 70 seconds, but of all time. She was the artist's artist, revered for her boldness and authenticity. Janis Ian, at 17, spoke for everyone who had ever felt invisible, overlooked, or unworthy. With its haunting honesty, the song struck a chord that still resonates today. Unlike many of her flashier contemporaries, Ian's power came from vulnerability. She sang about pain, isolation, and truth in a way that made listeners feel seen. Quiet but powerful, she became one of the most authentic voices of the decade. As the frontman of Queen, Freddie Mercury was pure electricity on stage. With a voice that stretched across 4 octaves, he could move from tender whispers to operatic highs in a single song. In the 1,970 seconds, he led Queen through masterpieces like Bohemian Rhapsody, a 6-minute epic that broke every rule in rock and became one of the most iconic songs of all time. Mercury's theatrical presence, flamboyant charisma, and fearless artistry made him not just a rock star, but a legend who redefined what it meant to perform. Dubbed the Golden God of Rock, Robert Plant's soaring vocals defined Led Zeppelin and the very essence of hard rock in the 1,970 seconds. His primal wails on Whole Lotta Love and his mystical delivery on Stairway to Heaven cemented him as one of the greatest frontmen in history. Plant wasn't just singing, he was summoning, channeling a raw, untamed energy that made every performance feel like a spiritual experience. Few figures embody rock and roll quite like Mick Jagger. With his strut, swagger, and unstoppable energy, Jagger turned every Rolling Stones concert into a spectacle of rebellion and joy. The 70 seconds saw the Stones release classics like Brown Sugar and Angie, fueled by Jagger's charisma and stagecraft. He wasn't just the voice of the band, he was its beating heart, the symbol of rock's defiance and decadence. Behind Jagger's swagger stood Keith Richards, the riff master whose guitar defined the Stones' gritty sound. From the swaggering opening of Brown Sugar to the immortal riff of Start Me Up, Richards's style was raw, dirty, and unmistakably rock and roll. The 70 seconds were turbulent for him personally, but musically, Richards remained a powerhouse, the architect of the Rolling Stones' dangerous, blues-drenched identity. Few records captured the spirit of the 70 seconds like Frampton Comes Alive. Released in 1976, the double album became one of the best-selling live albums of all time, turning Peter Frampton into an overnight superstar. His talkbox guitar became his signature, making songs like Do You Feel Like We Do unforgettable. With his boyish charm and guitar wizardry, Frampton defined the decade's lighter, more joyful side of rock. Before he became a solo superstar of the 80 seconds, Phil Collins was the backbone of Genesis. Starting as the drummer, his rise to frontman in the late 70 seconds helped guide the band from progressive rock to mainstream success. With his distinctive voice and impeccable timing, Collins laid the foundation for a career that would dominate the next decade. The 70 seconds were his proving ground, and he proved he was unstoppable. With his band, the Heartbreakers, Tom Petty brought American rock back to its roots. His jangly guitars and no-nonsense songwriting echoed the traditions of Dylan and the Byrds, but with his own modern fire. Songs like American Girl and Breakdown became anthems of freedom and rebellion, In a decade filled with excess, Petty was refreshingly authentic, a reminder of what rock was meant to be. By the 1970s, Bob Dylan was already a cultural icon, but he wasn't finished redefining himself. With Blood on the Tracks, 1975, Dylan released one of the most personal, intimate, and heartbreaking albums of his career. The record revealed Dylan at his most vulnerable, transforming pain into poetry. Even as trends shifted, Dylan remained the ultimate storyteller, reminding the world that true artistry never fades.